Good evening, Chatter crowd. Welcome to another edition of Chatterbox, as well as we have our podcast going tonight, Chatter Pod. We have the lovely Jared here doing the Chatter Pod for us. We also have Estevan, our normal co-host. We have Mary Poppins, our Chatter intern. And we also have our Chatter Sammie over here as well. I am your marvelous host, Jessie, the HBIC, here at Chatterbox. Our theme tonight is Haunted. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a minute. Quick announcement. We have candy. Come get some. Do it. What? Oh, but not while people are talking. Or you can. That's fine, too. And try not to kick the mic stand when you're up here. That's a real danger, as I just did. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first storyteller, who happens to be the co-host here at Chatterbox. He first started almost a year ago up here on this stage telling stories, and he's been a wonderful addition to the Chatter crew ever since, and we're really lucky to have him. Please help me welcome Estevan.
What's up, guys? I so appreciate you guys being here tonight. I don't normally have a dirty face. Normally I'm much more feminine. But tonight I am Estevan. I wish I had like a story that I could tell that was yours, but I know. Next time we'll work on that. Halloween is my most favorite holiday, and I can tell that most of you do not have this as your most favorite holiday because you do not fully commit to the Halloween costume contest, which is fair. And if you didn't know, that's okay. Venom, I really appreciate you. But Halloween's always been a huge thing in my family. Like, my parents love Halloween so much. They go so hard for Halloween. They decorate their whole house. We have a big Halloween party every year. It's like my mom's big holiday. Like, some people it's like Christmas or Thanksgiving. Like, my family is Halloween. And we always did like DIY Halloween costumes. It was never like store-bought stuff. Like, my mom can't sew or anything cool, but like we always made our own costumes. It was like a big deal. Like, we're not going to spend $1 bajillion for you to look like, you know, some store-bought costume that everyone else is going to have. You're going to make your own. So the best one I remember that I made when I was younger was my cousin and I were a pair of dice, which was hilarious, but like the logistics weren't great. Because we were giant cardboard boxes with like just armholes and a face hole and then just like tights. And we were young, like I want to say like maybe 10. And we had matching cardboard boxes, like different like dice. And we walked around with each other. And it was really funny if we were separate, but we were mostly together. And I remember like trying to sit down or like do activities with like the other kids in the neighborhood, and we couldn't do anything. So we ended up just like taking our boxes off for most of the part. Like, and people were like, "Oh, you guys are mimes." And I'm like, "No, we're not mimes." And you have to go get the box back on and like put it on your body. But it was hilarious. Just like having that. And it was like the cheapest, like what, like $1, like paint in like a cardboard box, like super cheap Halloween costume, but hilarious. And I love that Halloween costume. Another great, I'm just going to tell you guys about my favorite Halloween costumes I've ever had. Another great one. My sister and I were both the same thing. It's when we were like 4 or 5 and like we're 5 years apart. So when she was 4 or 5, she was the same thing. And we were Tinkerbell, and my dad was still very proud of this because it still works. Made a wand that lit up like way before like LEDs or anything else like was really cool. He used like spliced some wires and got some Christmas lights in there and like made it super fancy. And so it lit up. You put like a battery in it and it lit up, and it was like the most magical thing. But I have a picture of my sister and I like 5 years apart wearing that costume. It's like the best photo. Cause they like, my mom hand dyed like little white shoes green. So we were like Tinkerbell. It was so adorable. And then I think the best one I ever was at my family party, I scared my dad. My dad's scared of clowns. I'm not scared of most things. So like my dad being scared of clowns was hilarious. My dad's a big guy. He's not scared of a lot of stuff that I know of. And I recently had found out he was scared of clowns. I was in college at the time, and I didn't know this about him until like a couple years before like that Halloween party. So I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to be a clown. Like, that's hilarious. And so I did my clown makeup really terrifying. My mouth was like sliding off my face. Like the way I drew it was so fucked up looking. It was so terrifying. I had the mouth like sliding off my face, and it was like a sad face, but like sliding down. And like the rest of my makeup was really great. And I had like a really colorful, obnoxious outfit. Like my outfit wasn't scary. There was no gore, but like it was just unsettling because you couldn't really tell where my actual mouth was unless I talked. And if I had my mouth closed, like you couldn't tell. And it was so awful. And so I walked into the Halloween party, and my dad was like talking to someone, like a relative or whatever. And then he just looks over, and he like immediately like puts like 20 feet between us, like goes and like somewhere else. Like that conversation he was having, like, sorry, whoever it was, like walked away. And the whole party, like he wouldn't even come near me. There's no pictures of me from that Halloween. And my dad's like the designated photographer of all Halloween parties. There's no photos of me except for the ones that I took, like selfies. Like he doesn't have any pictures of it because he would not look at me. He would not get near me. Even though he knew it was his own daughter, he was terrified. And I think that's hilarious. So of course I made every effort to be as close to him as possible the whole night because I'm a loving daughter and respect his boundaries. But it was hilarious. So I think that was probably my favorite, even though it's not like terrifying, but it was really scary to him. All right, guys, I'm just going to regale you of all my Halloween costumes. All right, our next storyteller is a regular to this show. He's actually dressed up like a real adult professional tonight. Put your hands together for Pete.
Hi, everybody. Dressed up like my dad tonight. I'm just kidding. I don't know what my dad looks like. Joke. Just jokes. It's just jokes, people. It's not a costume. This is all me. Some of you guys think I look like Uncle Fester or I'm surviving lice. It's not the case. This is me on a fucking Wednesday getting off of work. My dad grew up telling me, he always said that there's a tax on everything in life. Everything you do, good or bad, you're going to get taxed, right? From the people you hang out with all the way down to what you put inside your mouth, you're going to get taxed. So when I saw the theme haunting, I didn't really know what story to share. So I just have a story that's 15 years old, but it haunts me every day. And after this, it'll probably haunt you too. So I had to leave home early, very young age, 16. But I say that real briefly because I've said it so many times here. It's like the background for a lot of my stories, but whatever. So, I started hanging out with people who were from different walks of life. A couple weeks ago, I told a story about a friend of mine named Justin who got hit in the back of the head with a pipe at a party. This story is about another guy that I met. His name is Artie. Party Artie. Very interesting dude. First time we met, we did not like each other. We butt heads right from the jump. And he was just one of these dudes that was just really intense. You ever met these guys? They usually got like metal militia on, and they just are just angry at everything. They listen to like propaganda and shit. Like they're just so hard about everything they do. They dip, Not if you dip, whatever, that's your fucking choice. Just saying, you're being judged. Let's call it what it is, right? You continue to put that in your mouth, you're being judged. It's 2018. Wake the fuck up. So this guy was intense. He was intense, and like he would do crazy shit like fuck with you when you were tripping on mushrooms. He was just a mean dude. He was a mean dude. He'd put shit on like Too Young to Die from Agent Orange when you're tripping balls. That's not what you want to hear. Shit like that. He was mean-spirited. He was like a mean-spirited person. Wasn't really my friend. He was just in the group, and we didn't really like each other. We didn't dislike each other. We just kind of tolerated each other. And this is a pretty short, brief story, but it's worth telling. So one night we're coming back home. Everyone starts to split up. Buddy Justin goes, sees a girl he's seeing. We're coming home from downtown. It ends up just being Artie and I. And Artie and I are talking, and we start talking about his parents and how one of his aunts is really sick. And I was like, oh shit, like we're about to connect and we're about to be friends. Like this is gonna be rad. So we're talking, and you know, he's fucked up, I'm fucked up. We're walking through the neighborhood and we see an Armando's. And he's like, dude, my stomach is wrecked. I need to get something to eat. We stop at the Armando's and we're ordering our food, looking at our thing. He starts cracking jokes about how it smells like dead dogs and all this shit. And the people are listening, right? All these people are listening, and, you know, I'm Mexican, so I have to be like, haha, he's drunk, sorry. You know, I know we look like a couple of skinheads, but we're not. Everything will be fine. So he starts ordering, and he gets he starts kind of flirting with the chick behind the counter. Woman, sorry. Starts flirting with her, kind of gets her distracted, and she goes to the back. And I used to love Armando's horchata up until this point. Like horchata, Jamaica, tamarindo, all this shit. Bomb. Quenches your thirst in the summer. It's delicious. It's what I grew up drinking. Artie's fucked up, and he looks at me, and no one's looking at him, and he goes, hey, dude, watch this. And he puts his hand in the juice jug and stirs it around and pulls it out. Now, I know that's disgusting. I'm sorry. But that story haunts me to this day, and it might haunt you guys too. So don't drink horchata from Armando's ever again. You're welcome. This is a PSA.
I just had some last week. I don't... No. One thing about our chatter pod that we do and our recordings for our podcast, it's really cool because I've known Pete now for about 6-7 months. I've been coming out here as a regular storyteller. And knowing where everyone started and then coming now and re-listening to, because I'm going through right now and listening to all the podcast episodes, you really get to see everybody's style just kind of evolve, because now that Pete's such a regular, it's just every week, every opportunity he gets, he's out here telling stories. So it's really cool to see. So give it a listen, because it's definitely worth it. Please help me welcome, first time at this stage, right? Please help me welcome a first-time storyteller at this stage. We have Athena.
My story won't be as gross, but it is a little scary. When I was a kid, thank you for telling me about your thing, by the way. I was excited to be here. But when I was a kid, I lived in a hotel that my dad was the caretaker at, and it used to be a cancer hospital. So there was a lot of things that went on. It was like, we lived there from when I was about 5 years old until I was about 11. So it was about, 1999. I was really big into cartoons. So honestly, that time period, I just remember kind of exploring the hotel. And, I was an only child, so I just was watching TV most of the time. But the first time I realized that of where we were living, I remember kind of, the place was huge. There was like 50 rooms. So at that point, I like to explore. And I went into the office, and there was a picture that I found where it was all these old men, and they were standing in front of the front doors of the hotel with red ribbon, like, on the front of the door. And they were kind of smiling with these scissors. And I brought this picture up to my dad, and I was like, what is this picture of? And he looked at me, and he's like, oh, that was when they opened the hotel, but it was a hospital. And I was like, oh. And then from there, I just kind of was noticing certain things, like when you're in a room and you put something down and then you go out of the room and you come back and it's not in the same place. Like certain things like that would happen. There was one point where I had a habit of sleepwalking. And I woke up one morning and my hands had like rock indentations, when you kind of are like crouched down and you put your hands in the rocks, and I was like, oh, this is okay. And then it was just certain things like that would happen, and my dreams started getting kind of worse, and it was just a lot of stuff that was going on. And then finally,